But 20 years in the Legion will make a boy man. 20 years in the Legion and they will give you land. 20 years in the Legion, you'll always have a home. 20 years in the legions of Rome.
Hello. Welcome to How Shit Works, the show where we look behind the curtain of how things run in Meridias. I'm one of your hosts, Thomas. I'm a knight, a pelican, a laurel. Opinions.
Hi, and I'm Erik. I am a knight and a landed baron, and I'm really excited to be here tonight with St. Thomas of the Many Meetings, who is everything you can possibly be in the kingdom of Meridias. Except a rose, but we're working on it. Anyway, tonight's episode, we're going to cover the Parchment Clerk and the Kingdom Historian's offices. Now, if you're like me, this may be the first time you've heard of the Parchment Clerk, and it sort of sounded to me like Bob Cratchit's job in A Christmas Carol. But I assure you that's not true. Our guests tonight, Maestra Veronica de Lucca and Lord Rørik MacLu. Will you both please introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourselves? Remember, several members of the audience may not know you.
Hi, I am Veronica de Lucca. I am the Parchment for Meridias, which means I handle the scrolls for the kingdom and courts and help their majesty with that process. And I guess that's it.
Hi, I'm Rørik. I'm Kingdom Historian, and of all the people who have said my name without knowing about it first, Erik, you're probably the closest so far. It's Rørik MacLu. Just that little extra bit there. Wow. But yeah, I'm Kingdom Historian and glad to be here.
Awesome. So, it looks excellent. Thomas is back. Woohoo!
Sorry about that.
No
I
worries.
think my system does not like it when we bring everybody in. For some reason, it always drops there.
Well, you had perfect timing because it's right. We are right on to you.
Welcome to the show. I want to thank you for joining us. We're lucky to have you here. Tonight's keywords are, have you covered this yet, Erik?
No, I have not.
Tonight's keywords are legend or legends by Lord Rørik and painting by Maestra Veronica. You're welcome to drink with us or not, as you choose. It doesn't have to be alcoholic unless you want to. I'm having blackberry ginger ale tonight in my Firehorse pottery mug. As always, whenever we will announce whenever we're going off script. And we'd like to thank Between Two Peers for allowing us to become a licensed franchise of their drinking game.
A quick note to our audience. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in the comments, and Graf and Katarina will collect them. Then we'll try to answer them at the end of the show. Now we're going to get started to our original questions. And that is, what do your offices do, and what are the responsibilities of your office? Maestra Veronica?
My office, I mentioned a little bit, is Parchment, and mostly take care of scrolls, help organize them, keep them safe from weather, and right now I'm shipping scrolls too, and I help the crown with court prep and stuff. So that's me.
The Kingdom Historian mostly just keeps track of the history of the kingdom and baronies and everything going on there. It's fun to talk about a historian in a historical group, but mostly what I do is maintain the royal lineage page and do my best to collect periodicals and relics of the kingdom and just keep them safe for posterity.
What are the qualifications and requirements to hold your offices?
Well, in my case, it was mostly Ulrich posted when he was Kingdom Seneschal that the role needed filling, and I put in my essay resume, and we're directly attached as a deputy to the Seneschal's office, And it was, I think the qualifications were mostly enjoying to do the kind of work and willing to keep track of lots and lots of pop shifts.
Well, I had a very similar process. The person who is current parchment puts in a notice, usually in the scribal guild or in the kingdom, asking for a deputy, and you have to send an SCA resume of things that you've done and your qualifications to run the position. And the current parchment will go through all of those SCA resumes and choose one. And as far as what the qualifications are, is you do have to have a technical background as far as skills. I mean, as far as calligraphy, you need to know a wide variety of calligraphy. And because that ends up being most of what I'm doing right now.
Outstanding. So we've mostly covered the next question I was going to ask, but I want to sort of like dial it down and get like affirmative answers. Rørik, it was the Kingdom Seneschal that approves you for your office and gives you the final say, so correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and Maestra Veronica, who is the person who has the final say in who becomes the parchment clerk? Like after you submitted your resume and they know you, who says yay or nay?
Well, I believe the parchment chooses the person and gives the recommendation to the crown, and probably the seneschal is involved in that too, because we definitely want to have a good relationship between our parchment and our crown because they work so closely together.
That makes perfect sense.
Do you have a society counterpart? And if so, how does that relationship work?
We actually just had a recent change in who we fall under, because we were our own standalone greater office, like the heralds. But recently, because we didn't have like a scribe counterpart in the SCA, we had to have somebody for checks and balances. So in following the order of that they already have set up, we are now answering to the ANS officer, which would also be the counterpart in society as well.
So do you report to the Kingdom ANS officer or the Society ANS officer?
Both. The kingdom, and then the kingdom responds to the ANS society office.
Rørik?
There's not really a society level historian as far as I can tell. I was glancing down lists just earlier today. There is a society archivist, but mostly the person who asks me what I'm doing and if I need anything tends to be Kingdom Seneschal.
So why did you want to pursue the jobs that you have, historian and parchment clerk, respectively? Specifically, what about them seemed compelling to you?
Well, with me, it was partly tied into what I do with my art stuff in the SCA, which is poetry and storytelling. And it's drawn the same way that it's drawn from myths and legends.
Drink.
About it for my part, the Scandinavian lore. I saw how much of there was just in the SCA as an organization that had been around for 50 years. And so it kind of followed as an outset of that. It's like, well, hey, this is kind of exactly my interest, just boiled down specifically to the organization. And you hear so many stories when you're sitting around a fire, and somebody to try to keep track of them and get as much of them remembered as possible seems like a fun thing to do.
For me, it was kind of really like kind of self-serving, because I love looking at the art that our scribes make. And I remember helping a couple of times with court prep and being able to look at some of the work in the kingdom cases. And I don't know, I really fell for it the first time I helped. And so I was always like, oh, I want to be Parchment one day. And it took a while. It took a while to get here, but yay. That was pretty much it. I wanted to look at pretty pictures.
Drink.
Oops.
Rørik, your drink behind. How much of your personal time do you spend on the office, and what takes up the largest percentage of your time relating to your office?
Probably the largest percentage of my time had been spent rebuilding the lineage page. Somewhere in the process of moving to the new website a year or two ago, links got broken and things were reduced kind of to code. So I worked closely with Kingdom Webminster and spent a while gathering, just rebuilding it as close to how the old one looked as possible. And that leads actually to if you have any pictures of old reigns, get them to me. They're perishingly rare, and they're helpful in things like the lineage page.
And the
you have a
anniversary
few.
posts.
I can check the page later where I simply don't have a picture.
And a lot of times I steal those for the anniversary post too. Sorry, Veronica. Go.
No, that's fine. This is actually a very interesting question. Because things have changed so much since I've been Parchment, from like first taking over and then this whole, pandemic time. So at the beginning, I did a lot of organization for like my preference of organizing. And that took a while. And I also took pictures of all the scrolls, and I stored each scroll in its own cellophane bag. I don't know. So all that took a really long time. And also in the midst of it, when I was a deputy, I was working on our Scribal Guild handbook. And so I finished it right before I took over. And then I published it, and I was like, you know what, really, the way that people are going to really read this information this day and age is to put it online. So I revamped our entire website, and our handbook is now our website.
Awesome.
So that was just a lot of personal time. Probably I would say anywhere from 3 hours a week to 20.
So my next question is for Rørik specifically. We know that most kingdom offices have their corollary offices at the baronial, shire, or canton level. Are there local historians? And should there be if they're not?
There absolutely are. I know there are for the baronies. I'm also Thor's Mountains historian, and there are. I'm not sure if all the shires have them. We're not particularly an organization. They seem like in Thor's Mountain, I'm sort of attached to the librarian as kind of her deputy. So it seems, depending on the group, depends on how that structure is set up. But Bryn Maddock has a fantastic page of just their baronial history. And it's an excellent example of how you can record what's gone on in your own territory.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I just want to remind our audience at home, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. There is a section later where we'll get to where we like to ask audience questions. So please post them, and we'll collect them and ask them later. So Veronica, how can someone get started if they want to begin in the scribal arts? Is there a local office they can contact?
There is, to answer the local office. I revamped the system to where there is now somebody that you can contact locally to ask questions to. They're called a regional representative, And I rolled that out about a year, like right before the pandemic hit. So like we haven't really gotten a chance to utilize that, but there is, somebody close to you. And if you have any questions about who they are, you can always reach out to me anytime. And the part about getting started is actually just reach out to me, to one of our scribes in the kingdom. We love sharing our knowledge and our joy of painting. So whenever we get a new person addicted, we're like, yes, they're ours. So you just come and ask questions and we'll help. The website is a really great source to use now because it has everything that you need to know as a scribe. It's a lot to, read all at once. And a lot of people learn through communicating live with somebody, so you can read and you can talk, we can get you started.
And there's a puppy, so Eric's distracted.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, like it's an animal. I can't help it. That is.
But he wants to say hi. He insisted on showing up.
Oh, that's a beautiful puppy. So,
thank you.
My next question is also for Rørik because I think I got this historian-specific question. Thomas asked the Parchment specific question. Probably the right choice. I mean, if there's a right choice there. But what kind of resources are most helpful in your job, and where do you find this information?
Well, finding the information can be the trickier part, which means what's most useful to me and what I've used recently to help the clerk of precedence with the OP and getting dates there was we went through and dug up the dates and locations of events in the early 90s just by digging through the pop shivs and looking at the event announcements and the calendars. And that's a part of my role other than just recording is when people have a question about something in Meridian history is I do my best to go through what I have and answer it.
Awesome. So I'm going to interject a hot take here. And that is, I realize that the title historian sounds a little boring. It sounds like you're going to spend like several hours with Professor Benz learning history of magic and trying not to fall asleep. But the reality is that the history of Meridian is the songs and tales and stories of the people who made the framework that the rest of us came up in, and it sort of shaped our lives, and it's really interesting. So you guys get off your butts, and if you have a thing that will help the historians, you get it to them, and you make that a priority because we could lose a lot of this stuff just by sheer neglect. And it'd be a damn shame if that happened.
Good point.
Sorry, guys.
Veronica, back to you because Eric's right. We're trying to switch back and forth, so the questions get bounced back and forth. How does scroll work get funded for the kingdom? Do the artists pay for it out of their own pocket? Is there a fund people can help donate to?
The majority of the cost for the scrolls in Kingdom at the current moment are upon this individual scribes. It is a pricey hobby because we have consumables like we consume the paper and every time we make a new scroll or our ink or paints and stuff like that. So we're constantly having to renew our supply. And there's a lot of tools involved. So it can get kind of pricey, but I think, I speak for myself, but I bet that most scribes would say the same thing, that we do it because we love it and it's a good outlet for our art. And we want to celebrate people and how hard they work and share a moment in that. As far as for all those people who are loving to donate, and we have several of them, we have a fund that they can donate to, both for the Parchment and the Scribal Guild. And Melina is heading that up right now. We have a shipping fund that I'm working with we suddenly have expensive shipping scrolls for the kingdom. which they're covering, and we just want to make sure that we help them out too. So, yeah. There's always a way to help. We always need supplies, and you can always just reach out to me or Emelina for information on how to do that.
If I can take us off script just a little bit, I'm sorry, Veronica. You mentioned the Scribal Guild. That's not something. Can you explain the difference between the Parchment Clerk and the Scribal Guild?
Oh, okay. Yes, that is actually an excellent question, because there's a lot of overlap, and Emelina and I help each other out a lot. The Scribal Guild leader, she runs the guild, helping to give information to scribes and organize things and stuff. And then I'm on the parchment side, which deals with mostly the scrolls and images of them and stuff like that. So, but I do also, because it's inherently scribal, we have a lot of interplay with each other and overlap. But so I would say, sorry.
You focus more to the crown and her focus is more to the scribe?
Yes, actually. That's a perfect way to explain what I rambled about.
So I'm going to dive off script for just a second too, because I'm going to follow St. Thomas's example before I get to my question. Just ballpark a figure for me. How much in supplies would your average scroll use up in terms of a dollar amount? $5, $10, $15?
Oh.
And I realize I'm putting you on the spot here, but just the best guess.
Gosh, the thing is there's a lot of upfront cost in purchasing your supplies. But once you have your paint, it can last a really long time. But you have to have that exact color to start off with before you can do it. And but you can go through those. But so each scroll is just taking a little bit of paint, and then you can say, well, there's Bristol, which is one of the most common bases that we use. And there's like another grade parchment that a lot of people love the feel and texture for, and that's more expensive. And then, for example, there's like actual parchment, which is the most expensive. That can go up to like $20 to $50 a page, depending on like the size. So there is a wide range of price and of cost, and I would say at minimum a scroll would probably be like $2 for everything being, baseline.
So just to continue that for just a second, then I promise Jessica I will get back on script. How many scrolls do you think your office does in a year?
I had this number and I wish I had looked it up beforehand. But I would say we probably each reign do about 200 to 250. So, that's about 500 a year.
Right, minimum. Like at the minimum, it's 500 a year. All right, folks,
yeah.
So you heard it out there. These people are putting out serious money. Now I get to my question. What kind of changes have you made to your offices during these lean times of shutdown? Because that has to have been challenging.
Well, it took me a while to get around to it because I don't know why, but realizing that so much of what I do is trying to keep track of the stories, realizing that we are all constantly on Zoom now. I've started making use of that. I tried it first in my barony, and a couple of weeks ago I tried it at a kingdom level, just holding a Zoom room open for people to come tell stories. And as long as as it happened at an event, as part of the history of Meridiates. And I've been recording those, and probably in the next week or two, I'm going to sit down with what I have and sort of go through them, mark times where different stories start, and make them available. We're all sitting on our butts telling stories anyway, so why not take this time to save some of those stories so we can preserve the oral history as oral history?
I have to agree with that because, you know, as many of you know, I had my elevation online, but I waited almost a little over 300 days when the pandemic started to make a decision because I wanted to do it in person. But now being able to look back on my elevation, because I mean, I definitely was out of my my head to be able to remember. It's been nice to have that video to be able to look back. So just in my own personal experience with that, it's got to be even better for the whole kingdom.
I like it. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. You're still answering.
I was just coming on Rørik, so I was gonna start my part. Really, it's been hard. It's hard to keep motivated when you're not seeing all the people that you're making the scrolls for. So, you know, we've done a lot to try and motivate people. We've had a bunch of challenges. We have the Foxes Challenge, then the Scribetober Challenge, and the one we just had another one recently. Anyway, so all of that to try and drum up excitement and to get people motivated to do their artwork, because one, it's therapeutic, so it's got to be helping people during this time. It's just really hard to get that motivation to do that. So that's mostly what we've been focusing on, and we've had to do our meetings online. I think we've only done one when the pandemic first started, but you know, that's interesting. So I don't know. I hope they may be long-lasting changes. They may not. One thing that is a huge benefit right now is being able to show scrolls in court, like close-ups of them, and which has been really nice.
I do like the pictures of all the scrolls after court. Those are really, really nice. So the next question is, do scrolls have to be all original? And can you explain what that means?
Excuse me. So that comes from back when earlier in the kingdom, we used to do something called a preprint, which was a scroll that had already been calligraphied and drawn, and it was printed out on this fancy paper. And people, scribes would just color it in. So those are preprints, and now what we call originals are people who have, it's not printed, it can be traced or drawn and painted, you know, individually, you know, for that purpose. So so those are the two different things. So don't take preprints anymore, and so everything is original right now. Did someone say paint? Sorry,
Sure.
I said paint. Oh, twice.
Rørik, is there any way the populace at large can help your office? I know you're like checking out the Zoom chats and things like that, but what can they do proactively to help you?
Rørik, you're muted.
Sorry about that.
Don't worry.
Well, like you said, the Zoom chats, I'll be doing another one tomorrow at 8 Eastern in the Tuesday night get-togethers that Mistress Ellen DeLacy has arranged. If you have a few stashes of periodicals from the kingdom that are lying around, not really doing much, send me a message. I'm eager to fill out the collection I have. I don't quite have all of them, but every one I get is another bit of information I can look up. The other thing that's really handy, and what I have the least of because it's been a year and a half in not seeing anybody, is if you have any kingdom regalia that's decommissioned or not in use anymore, it's part of my office's job to keep that safe so that we have those relics of our past safe to see what goes along with the legends that we have.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Awesome. So when pandemic started, I started talking to some people about the legends of the kingdom that we have since lost, and started collecting stories and songs and poems about those specific people. And at some point, relatively soon, they will be made into a book, which will then become the property of the kingdom. So I'm assuming that would come to you then.
That would be an amazing thing to have. And I should also probably specify when I'm talking about regalia, we're talking about kingdom regalia, badges of offices, not awards you've been given that you no longer wear.
Right.
Important distinction.
Yeah. If someone is, so back to you, Veronica, if someone is only interested in calligraphy or illumination, but not both, can they still help?
Yeah. We can split up all of the parts of a scroll. If you only want to draw, we had several people who just wanted to sketch it out. You can sketch it, and then somebody else can paint it. Then the next person can just do the calligraphy on it, or, gold, or, several people can do the different parts of painting, or one person can do the whole thing. So if you don't want to do the whole thing, you think you're just interested in one thing, that's totally something that we can work with you on, because we want everybody to do it. So we're going to try and make it easy as possible.
Excellent. That was like 3 drinks, by the way, everybody.
I think I want to do 2.
I'm in the midst
Yeah, I think I'm finishing mine off.
Right. Now that everyone has paid the toll, so to speak, what do you both see as your biggest challenges going forward?
Well, really, it's, as you mentioned earlier in your hot take, there's so much that's already been lost. His Grace Duke Thomas asked me a few weeks ago if I could include some of the principality reigns in the lineage site, which I'm working on. It's, at this point, what's holding me up is trying to see if I can dig up some picture of Francois' reign. There are things that have happened in our past and stories in our past. Some of evidence or pictures of have simply been lost over time, and that is not going to change. Entropy happens. So the more the historians, either kingdom historian or local branch historians, can gather, the more of that we'll have. And sometimes just having an object or a flyer from an event can remind you of things that happened there, and some more of that history comes out.
I think the biggest challenge for us as scribes is to continue to be motivated, really, and to dedicate what time we have to Scribble, like making it, not the priority, but the priority of hobbies, I guess. Yeah, and then catching up with each other, discussing new techniques that we've learned, and maybe trying to catch up with the scrolls too. Those are some challenges. I mean, actually, we have a very healthy Kingdom scroll case at the moment, but you never know.
Excellent. What is the most difficult part of your jobs?
For me, I think it would be the organization part. It's very structured, you can't lose scroll, but I added, and you don't want anything to happen to any of your information. So being organized is really important. And I tend to forget things. So that's a challenge. You have to write things down so that I don't forget that we have court coming. And yeah, I think just trying to keep organized.
aside from the difficulties of simply time and entropy I've mentioned, one of the side effects of I've had several nice donations full of stacks of popular chivalry. I have many of the same issues of pop chivalry, which, while I mean, to an extent, everything I can preserve is nice. They have bulk after a while. And it's a matter of, I think I have 3 or 4 not quite full stacks of Pop Shiv, all organized by date. And there's a lot to shift through when you're looking for something that happened in a year that the person asking the question isn't quite sure of, a location they're not quite sure of, but this happened. And they want to know if I can find something about it.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to just jump in here, and this is an additional question I'm going to ask you, Rørik. Understanding that I get the time that would be involved, has any thought been given to putting all of those online or in a single PDF document? And I asked that because I had a similar idea to do that a few years ago and couldn't lay my hands on a full copy. But if you have multiple copies, then that could be a thing.
Yeah, that does seem like a thing that could work out. And lots of time involved, but it would be really worth it, I think, to have a digital compendium like that.
Awesome. I'll message you after this. We won't clog up time with my own personal projects. So, what's the most fun part about both of your jobs? If there is a fun part.
Well, getting hands on Kingdom Regalia and then imagining all the things it's been through and the stories involved with it is always nice and fun. I have a couple of things, and one that I came by easily was the previous tabard for Torch Herald before the most recent one's been made, and there's some interesting tie-dye like stains on it that I'm still working on getting the stories of.
Well, all right.
The fun part of my job is really just getting to look at all of the pretty pictures, pretty scrolls, to kind of promote something that I love to do, and I hope that other people find that same type of enjoyment. So yeah, but yeah, it's awesome looking at all the pretty pictures. Like I mentioned, was the whole reason I wanted to do this in the first place.
Excellent.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, what's the most rewarding part of your job?
I would have to say getting able to promote the scribes right now. So, being able to have not only the scrolls shown in court, which, it's shown in court when we're together anyway, but this is like an close, front and center picture. Being able to have that names. And then also, I have on our website, I have a whole Meet the Scribes page where I put all of the pictures of scribes and some of their most recent work. And hopefully we're going to keep that updated throughout the years. And then we started this Scribal Gallery, Scroll and Scribal Gallery, where everybody can post any of their scrolls that they have into the gallery in a certain format. It's written down on the gallery front page, and then that way we can also have records of scrolls, and we tag the artists on all of the scrolls that they have out there, so it's easily searchable. Like people can search by who did the art, whose award it was, and what type of award. Anyway, so those have been very rewarding, being able to promote all of the scribes.
Awesome.
Well, some of it has been just the information and resources I've found. Like, I have a Kingdom of Meridier's Knight Marshal's Handbook from 85. I have an Order of Precedence from like 81. And just being able to flip through and see some of the differences. And I mean, we all love the feeling of old periodicals or old books and the way they're just a little bit yellowed and the old paper smell, and getting to dig around those as carefully as possible, but just have them and think back to the changes that have happened well before I got here, and then even since I got here, is a lot of fun.
So, assuming someone was interested in serving as historian or parchment clerk, what advice would you give that person in regards to what they should do to prepare themselves or what they should expect?
I think I would say, well, start at your local branch. Talk to people about things that have happened. See if there's a archivist or librarian or this position available, and see if you like digging around. I mean, there's a lot to be said for finding things or searching through books because the information simply isn't digital yet. And if that's a thing you like, then come talk to me, because
You're muted again.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Where did you lose me?
Come talk to you.
It's simply that I've been Kingdom historian for about 2 years, and soon I'll need to dig around for a replacement deputy. So if you're interested.
Actually, that's a good segue into mine. I'm going to be needing to look for a parchment deputy soon too. So if you're interested, like we mentioned before, the qualifications or for parchment are mostly calligraphy, knowing as many different hands as you can and being really comfortable with it. A lot of work is trying to mimic another person's handwriting to make it look like the scroll was more original than just a couple of blank spots here and there. So in any future, parchment would need to be doing that, as well. So calligraphy is, and any sort of skill and organization, those are like the two main things.
What kind of projects have you implemented to help you get through this weird time? I know we've touched on a lot of them, but are there any projects that you've done that we haven't talked about yet to get through the pandemic? And do you have any big plans going forward?
We did mention that a lot of the things that I've had to do to change for the pandemic. And as far as going forward, I think just focusing on motivating the scribes is going to be, the thing that we have to keep doing, because ESCA is really hard. It's a lot different, and a lot of people just can't do it. We all have different abilities, and sometimes just sitting on Zoom is just too different. So. The fortunate thing about Scribble is a lot of it is done at home and behind the scenes. So, even though Zoom is weird or online ESCA, Facebook stuff is all, interesting, we can still be doing the work behind the scenes and getting people motivated to spend their time of their day working on that will be. But I have to continue to change going forward.
Well, a project that has hit on me right in this chat, in addition to Erik talking about a digital compendium of pop shivs, is considering Maestra Veronica's experience with an online elevation. seeing how many recordings of elevations we can get and archive, because there have been people taking video of them for years anyway. And if we can't find if there aren't videos, there might be basically written scripts for ceremonies. And if that's a thing people would like to contribute to, it would be fascinating to have a list and a record of the elevation of the kingdom's peers.
Cool.
That would be cool. So now it's time for me to drop one of our disclaimers, and that is, this is all how things work here in Meridies. Every kingdom is different. If you're watching this from out of kingdom, then you don't understand why Meridies is the best kingdom, and so you might be a little confused at why we do things the way we do. If you have any questions, feel free to contact St. Thomas of the Many Meetings, as he knows how everything happens in Meridies, and he is your one-stop shopping point for getting everything right. Next up, we're going to go to our topics, myths, and misconceptions, and Thomas is going to start us off.
All right, so our first myth tonight is, I only like painting preprint, so I'm not allowed to do scribble anymore. Is this true?
No, actually. We have people who only like to draw. So if you like doing preprints because you just like to paint and not do the drawing part, we have people who like to do that and not paint. So we can connect you two up and you can work together that way. So we have so many different parts that they can do whatever that they want to do, that it should be open for everybody.
There was a drink in there, by the way, guys. Two. I'm sorry. Two.
Right, take two, they're small. All right. So, my cat Maggie is very proud of her posterior. Now we got that important kingdom detail out of the way. What types of history does the historian curate, specifically in regards to media?
That's been an interesting task. It's an interesting question, and one I've had to work to address over the past year and a half, because in essence, it's history of the kingdom, and medium is, well, whatever can I get my hands on. And my question for a while had been about oral history, and should I go around with an audio recorder to events, and then I can't even remember what it was, but something I think the webmaster said a few months ago, was like a light bulb in doing it with the Zoom formats. But yeah, I curate periodicals, anything that can give us a clue and a memory going forward of what's happened.
All right. And our final myth tonight is, I suck at painting. I could never be a scribe. Veronica?
Well, it's true that talent is helpful, but, talent only gets you so far. Practicing really does make perfect. You just got to put in the time and you can get better and better and better. I feel like anybody can do it if they're willing to put in the time and be dedicated. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Now, we're going to go to our live feed questions, and I'm going to start us off with a question from one of our most renowned, popular, and hard-hitting royal peers, Graf Ulrich von Brandenburg, who hits significantly harder than I do. How much time does it take to create your average scroll?
Oh gosh, that's a good question, because it can vary because each aspect can vary in level of complexity. So does the time to complete a scroll does. So I would say for a pretty basic scroll, probably no less than 10 hours. And for like maybe a peerage scroll, I know I have spent 80 plus hours on a peerage scroll. So it varies greatly, but it is a lot of time. But it's very rewarding time.
Our next audience question from Ian McKenna is, what was the most outlandish or amazing scroll you have ever seen awarded? And I guess both of you can answer this one.
So this kind of funny, at Golf Wars, there's this scroll that we give out. And I mean, I swear the scroll is like larger than a poster, is huge, humongous. And you know, I have the privilege of being able to help work on it, but it would be mailed to all different scribes throughout the different kingdoms, and everybody would have their own part of it. But the most outlandish part was that this huge poster scroll had a ton of gold on it, which is very pricey. So it was huge and big.
Rørik?
I think some of the etchings I've seen have been really memorable.
Yeah.
Mistress Mariana had her peerage scroll etched on a copper pot.
Nice.
I remember
Yeah, that's
Finvar's peerage, I think peerage scroll was in runes on a shield. And those little nods to both why somebody's getting a peerage and their persona are, I think, really, really amazing. As far as outlandish, I believe Santa Jeff had a scroll with a modified version of Hell's Balls, and that being read out in court was entertaining, particularly the herald's ability to
Sorry.
Our next question is from Drusilla Vitruvia, but I hope I pronounced that right. And it's, how do we send the historian any pop shibs we come across?
Well, send me a message, tell me what you got, and we will talk about either mail or hopefully with vaccines getting like they are, maybe an in-person exchange soon.
If we've lost one of our old preprint scrolls and we wanted to replace it, is that possible? And will we go to the parchment clerk or a historian? And this is from Ulrich von Brandenburg.
I'll answer that. If you have lost your scroll and would like to have a replacement, we have a system set up for that. You can reach out to me privately, and I can set you up the scribe to commission a scroll. Typically, our first scrolls that go out to the kingdom are complete for your award. And so any scrolls thereafter, barring natural disaster, is usually there's usually an artist's fee involved, and that's usually worked out between the person who is commissioning the scroll and the scribe. They can work that out between themselves. And if it was done by a natural disaster, we usually will do another complimentary scroll, because you can't help a natural disaster. We'll take those on case by case basis, of course. And in any case, if you have something that has been lost or stolen or destroyed, just reach out to me, and I'll connect you up with the scribes and make sure that we get you something.
Okay, there's a clarification that just came in on that question. He wants to replace it with a preprint. I think he's wondering, do you still have the ability to recreate exactly old preprints?
Oh, that is interesting. I've never had that question before. I have several preprints that I just happened to, I can't remember, somebody gave them to me. And I took pictures of them and put them in our gallery. So if it happens to be one of the preprints that I actually have hard copies of, I can reproduce it. And if it's not, I could probably figure it out, but I don't even know how we used to make them. So I'd have to do some work
probably
there.
work as a teamwork situation, as we could dig in the order of precedence, figure out who has the award, has an award from that time period, and see if they still have that scroll. That could give us an idea what to start with. That plays into a bit of Ulrich's question earlier. If I was asked that question, about the preprint scroll, I would probably go to Parchment, because part of the most common phrase I give in my office is, "I don't know, but I can find out."
So, Ulrich also wants to know, and I'm going to speak specifically the way he worded it. Ooh, a historical scribal gallery. In the future, whose office does that stay under?
I guess we'd have to duke it out, right?
Cooperative efforts are great.
Yeah, for sure.
We
We'd have to come up with a plan.
Teamwork to begin with.
Well,
sorry, I think.
And our final audience question here is from user Bloodhoney. Does the kingdom have an archive of scribal art, i.e. that belongs to the kingdom rather than the person who receives the award?
As far as I know, there is not, I don't know if the historian has any information on that. We do have the Facebook page that has the gallery, the Meridier Scroll and Scribal Gallery, that has a lot of old scrolls on there. So maybe we could work together with the historian to make sure that those scrolls don't get lost if the Facebook page shuts down or something like that.
I think it could be a thing. We reach out to the webmaster, get some web space, and put an archive there. Otherwise, there's some of the scribal art is, of course, based off the badges that go with various awards, and we have all that in the list of Meridian awards.
Okay, so last chance. Is there anything else you want to cover before we go?
I'm pretty good. I feel like those were some really excellent questions and seem very thought out. And if ever you have any questions that I didn't specifically cover here, I'm an open book. You can reach me. I'm on my phone, like I have it next to me all day long. It's like attached to the hip. So, and I love hearing from the scribes and having that rapport. So, just reach out.
I'm usually pretty easy to get a hold of too. I mean, my work takes place on my computer, so Messenger is pretty much always in front of me. And I always have an answer, either I don't know, or I can find out, or I'm not sure how we would find that out, but I'll ask some people. And new and interesting questions always lead to interesting places and learning things that have either been lost or put aside, or at least I just haven't heard before, which is great.
So now we're going to talk about the shout out portion of the show. And this is where we give shout outs to other shows that we've been watching, or people doing things in the kingdom that you want to specifically take a moment to point out. First, I'm going to pimp out Graf Ulrich's appearance on Coach's Corner this Friday. You should definitely check it out. You should definitely troll the show with all the questions that you can think of, as he did here. and you should make certain that they're highly controversial and on point. I also want to give a shout out to Mistress Magdalena de Parma. That's M squared because she's both a Laurel and a Pelican. She is out all over social media pimping art like you've never seen before. Like literally, it's like Laurel's gone wild. So I want to say, like, thanks for keeping that foremost in the eyes of the populace when people are getting a little exhausted by the virtual SCA and people's attention spans are wandering and it's just a little hard to stay engaged. And she's doing a fantastic job at trying to keep people on that subject. How about you folks?
I don't have any shout outs.
Well, Hound and Stag is what I watch the most, so.
That just shows you have excellent taste.
So I'm told. And just a plug for it again, tomorrow night at Ellen DeLacy's weekly host of Zoom rooms, I'll be having a Come Tell Me a Story at 8 Eastern to 10 Eastern, and I'm eager to hear things you've experienced and seen at events so that those stories don't get lost and forgotten. If there's anything this past year has shown us, it's that some of those sources can go away really fast. And let's not let the stories disappear too.
I want to give a shout out to the people who worked on the project to rebuild and redo the Order of Precedence. It's amazing. And I know Drusilla is working her tail off because as I've been doing these anniversary posts, I keep finding things that, you know, the esoteric vagaries of the past that get misfiled. And she's always got them fixed, usually about 5 minutes after I message her about them. So I just think she's done a fantastic job. I think that whole team's done a fantastic job. I also call out anybody who's worked on any of these shows, any of these things, keeping the SCA going and together when we can't be together in person. So I want to thank you, Maestra Veronica and Lord Rørik, and of course our support crew, Jessica, Adriana, Katarina, Kikuchi, and Erik. Do you know how to pronounce the last one?
Margaret, I believe.
Right. Charmone.
Right. Yeah.
But most
Margaret,
importantly,
it's a lot simpler than it looks.
Thank you for joining us.
So
You're
next
welcome.
week we're going to review the office of the Society Seneschal with Mistress, and man, do they love to give us these names. I'm going to go with Elisee Ingen de Armada. It's got to be close enough. She's going to be here to talk to us about the Society Seneschal's office and how I still haven't been banished yet. So please join us Saturdays for Hound and Stag Fighting Review as well, where we're covering Ring Spridian Crown List 2019. 5 more weeks till we get a new Crown List, folks. 5 more weeks.
Woo!
And again, don't forget to catch Rørik on Coach's Corner this Friday and troll the hell out of him with questions. If you've enjoyed yourself tonight, or if you haven't but still want to support the show, please take a moment to like and subscribe and click the notification buttons on YouTube. I believe on YouTube they are down here, but I've never done this before, so it might be backwards. And then Facebook is up here if you're watching on Facebook. Like and follow.
Finally, if you're watching live, give us about 5 minutes for a break, and then feel free to join us on Zoom for the after show. Watch the live feed comments on Facebook for the link. We'll hang out and chat for about a half hour or so after the show. Graf and Katarina is going to kindly post it now.
Wait, we have merch. We don't understand how this timeline works anymore, but go to houndandstag.com and buy our merch. Or not. Do what you want. You're responsible adults. Or close enough.
I got the t-shirt from Hound and Stag, the one with all of everything on it. It is so flaming extra. I will be wearing it Saturday night. So tune in to see just how over the top it actually is.
All right. Good night,
Good night,
everyone.
everybody.
And if I die in battle, tomorrow I'll be home, though it's 70 days' march to there from Rome. But a soul travels swiftly on the night wind, and if I die in battle, I'll be home again.